Hi, my name is Joseph Ally. Welcome to my channel, and today I want to talk about Neville's concept of everyone is you pushed out, or everyone is yourself pushed out. Critical topic. It's something that can be proven through testing nearly immediately, so long as you're capable of looking in your past or really just observing the reality around you. And I want to talk about that and point out in scripture where you can prove that this is true and how to apply it to your life. What does this mean? How do you use everyone as yourself pushed out? How can you use it to get exactly what you want? I mean, what is it that you want? I have used this. It's like a secret weapon. You can detect not only what you need to change, but you can also know what a person is thinking by applying this law, this rule. So what is everyone is yourself pushed out? Now, before we begin, please hit the like button to something to the algorithm so that those who wouldn't normally be able to see this will see this. Also, hit the subscribe. We are almost at 100,000 subscribers, 99.1 thousand as now, but let's blow past that. Many of you don't even realize you're not subscribed. I'd appreciate it if you took that minute and actually did it, especially those of you who aren't, who are getting value from this. Obviously, you're watching this. YouTube does an excellent job by giving people videos that want to see those videos. But let's jump into this, right? I'm going to start it off directly with a verse that's talking about everyone is yourself pushed down. Then I'll explain to you what it is. This is in the book of John, chapter 15. And it says, I am the vine. No, it says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Now, I'm reading the King James version of the Bible, okay? So it's going to sound like Old English, but there's a very specific reason about that. And in fact, if you're curious about it, the reason is because it has the greatest level of translations available to it, because it's the most, at least to my experience, I've read a great many Bibles, but this is the one that I've read since 2010. And not this exact one, right? Unfortunately, that one is like exploded in multiple pieces and I've lost half of it. But nevertheless, this one you can cross-reference with concordances, which show all the ancient Koine Greek and the ancient Hebrew, and you can cross-reference it with tons of other books, whereas the other books is not as easy to do that. So this is really what you want, because those correlations, those cross-references are critical, you see, because this translation is not accurate to the truth. Now, there's one truth, there's a story, but there's a whole nother side to this, right? There's a reason that Hebrew is written in a cipher, and that cipher depicts a lot of truth about manifestation that you won't be able to directly be able to pick up through just reading it like this. So when you have a concordance, when you have something like the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, you're going to need the King James Version in order to use this. So in case you didn't know that, there's a little tip for you, right? I've been studying this stuff for a long time. But I am the true vine. My Father is the husbandman, which is like the carer. Each branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he purges it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now, you are clean through the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. And as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can you, except you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abides in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. I mean, there's so much. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and that shall be done unto you. I can keep going on, right? Because there's a lot of variations of this in here. Now, if you'll notice, there's a lot of repetitions in scripture, and the reason for that, and it doesn't make sense as far as standard authorship, but it's because it's a cipher. And a lot of these statements, you can line up next to each other and equate them to each other to find definitions. But what we're talking about here is everyone is yourself pushed out, which really goes into the truth about this reality in and of itself. The key, so I'm going to explain to you very briefly, what does that mean? Everyone is you pushed out means that everything in your experience, everything in your life is you pushed out. And what does that mean? What does you pushed out mean? That means your consciousness, your imagination pushed out. So, but how does that equate? How does that make sense? The truth of this reality is that this is the law. So anyone that you interact with, anything that you do, anyone that does anything to you, it first originates in you. And that's why it says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Now that can be interpreted in two different metaphysical ways, but they are both explicitly testable and true. And we're going to go with the way that's describing everyone as you pushed out. So in other words, if we want to break this down even more specifically, what it's saying here, now keep in mind this is Christ speaking. Now here's another thing you can take away and take it to the bank. You can figure this out by just reading it or by listening to Neville. And that is, anytime Christ is speaking, it's referring to you, your consciousness, your imagination. And anytime God is speaking, it's still referring to you and your imagination, but also the entirety of consciousness, right? There's two players here. There's God, which is infinite consciousness, and that's the consciousness in everyone. And then there's Christ, which is your personal consciousness. So, but what he's saying here is, I am the vine, you are the branches. I am is the name of God. So he's saying, I am the vine. I am is the vine. Your consciousness, I am means consciousness, right? If you ask yourself, what does I am mean? You have to trade it for I am aware of being, right? So I am is your consciousness. And it says this in Exodus. It says this all throughout Scripture, and it's provable because when you switch out God for your consciousness and then you begin to do the things that it says in this book, the results should be that of God's results, right? Miracles, power, infinite intelligence, and all of these can easily be visible when you analyze a manifestation. So, but the key of this is I am the vine, you are the branches. And that means this means multiple things. This means every single thing that I myself am aware of being, I will manifest in this world. You are the branches, which means if we take that around, we flip that around, then it goes to say that everything that I'm witnessing, I am the origin. You're acting this way, I'm the origin. I ran into you here, I'm the origin. This great thing happened, I'm the origin. This bad thing happened, I'm the origin. You are the vine. Everyone else is the branches. And that is a powerful, powerful thing. Even with that alone, and if you know the other verse that says, oh my God, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This means that your thoughts are what you are, and your thoughts are the branches. So let's equate that again. And again, this is what you do when you're reading Scripture. This is how you do the metaphysical interpretation of the Scripture, which again equates to be absolutely true when you test it. Okay, I don't want to hear anything about believing or I believe this to be true, or I believe this is false, or my book is better than your book. And this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with practical application, putting it to the test. I don't want to hear any of that. Everyone, including myself, leave beliefs at home and go straight for the instruction book. Okay, that's what we do here on this channel, and that's all we do here on this channel. Everything is tested, put to the test time and time again. So, if as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, so he is, right? So I am. If I think in my heart, so I am. Well, it says, I am the true vine, you are the branches. Everything that I allow myself to dwell upon that exists within the subconscious mind will manifest in this world time and time again. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what about all the stuff that I've experienced that I haven't first imagined? Now, imagining is a very specific simplification of what is actually being explained here, because really what it's saying, if you recall, it's not really just talking about imagination. Imagination is an easy way to describe how to manifest, and so it's utilized in a very beautiful way, right? If you want to manifest something, if you want to push something out, if you want a branch to be a wife, if you want a branch to be $1 million, you want a branch to be a successful business, you want a branch to be losing 20 pounds, gaining 20 pounds, fixing your mental health, gaining loads of friends, you conjure up an imaginal act so that you think it, and you hold it within your mind, your consciousness, which is God. And he that hears you in secret shall reward you openly. Now, that's a half of a verse, and I wonder if you can figure out what that verse is. If you do, go ahead and put that in the comments below, and I'll freaking love that stuff and give you a high five. But point being here is Imagination is not the only thing that creates. Imagination is a simplified version, right? And if you listen or if you read through the lectures of Neville Goddard, right? Now, again, the books are one thing, but read the lectures. They are far more thorough. I know not everyone has the time to do that, right? That's why you're at this channel here. But I'm telling you straight up, if you are a more serious and advanced practitioner and you take Neville seriously, reading his lectures is going to take you quite further. However, what I'll say to you is, as I was saying, imagination is not the only way to create. It's actually your consciousness is the way to create. So in other words, anything that you are capable of consciously conceiving within the mind and fixing there, God, which is light, will refract through and cast its shadow on the screen of space. And that you've heard from Neville, right? In this world, mortality is of, what is it? Of shadow. It's just a shadow. That's right. But that is also William Blake, right? That is actually William Blake. What's amazing about that, interestingly enough, is there's proof that, everything is light internally, right? In other words, everything is light. And what happens when something is put in front of light? Meaning physically, right? We're talking about physics, quantum physics here. It casts a shadow on the screen of space. This is the world of shadows, right? So I am the vine, you are the branches. So anything that you hold within your consciousness will eventually become a branch. So let's put this into practice, right? Let's put this into practice. Let's put this into the extreme test now for a second, all right? I'm going to put this aside for now. So take into consideration, how do we begin to analyze reality to understand what everyone as you pushed out? Oh, what I was going to say is, because I lost my train of thought there, ADHD, right? Is when we talk about what about the things I don't create, right? It's not necessarily the things that you've imagined. It's necessarily the things that you become aware of at some point. Sometimes it's a judgment that you've made many years ago that's causing patterns to evolve. It's causing patterns to manifest over and over again. And for me, there were many experiences that happened in my life, especially that of relationships, that I didn't understand why these patterns were happening, because there was always a first time, but it seemed to be that I was destined that way. Now, how many of you can relate to that? That the situation that you're in appears to be that you are just destined. There's no way to break out of it. This is all because of your subconscious beliefs. But these subconscious beliefs sometimes don't come from physical reality. They don't come from witnessing something that has caused you to have this assumption or belief. It's your internal judgment that you make to a circumstance. In other words, you can experience something completely different. I can be like the one example I've given time and time again, and it has to do with how I deciphered and my insecurity in relationships, is I remember there was a time where my mother was going out and she never really went out. She always took care of us kids at home. She was always stay-at-home mom. And she ended up going out for the first time in like however many years is what it seemed to my child mind. I was probably like 7 or 5 or something. And I remember she was gone and I was nervous enough that she wasn't there. And I remember my father, he was drinking. And I remember he started teasing me and saying that your mother is never coming home. And I remember the terror, the agony, the fear. I still remember it so perfectly, right? What's amazing about that is I know that stuck with me permanently. And my mother came home probably just, an hour later or something. But it was the judgment, the internal acceptance of that idea that my mother was never coming home that caused the deep-seated fear of abandonment that further destroyed my life for about 30 years, literally. Every relationship I've ever tried to have, and it was the worst case scenario every time. So what, though, did I do in order to figure out that? I looked at reality. If everyone is you pushed out and everything is a branch and you are the vine, that means you are the creator. And that means another thing is that a seed only grows into its own likeness. You will not have something become something else. You will not have a manifestation transform into another manifestation. That is not how it works. So what you can do is, and that's in scripture as well. And what does it say? You can't have I forget, it uses 2 obscure plants and fruits that I myself don't use at all anymore, so I'm not going to pretend to remember it. But it basically says you can't plant this and get this, you can't do this and get this. So point is You can always decipher what the truth of the branch is. You can locate the vine by observing the branch. Now, the branch was, I was petrified of abandonment, and I always destroyed my relationships as a result of that, which caused the abandonment. And that meant I had fear of abandonment, right? That it was obvious, not because I constantly thought I am afraid of being abandoned, but because of my actions and because of the thoughts, like they're about to leave, what are they doing? What are they thinking? Are they mad at me? And such and so forth. What you do is you observe reality, and you can do this with anyone. And when you observe reality, you can then surmise what, if there is a belief, what would be causing these behaviors? What would be causing these thoughts? And you can figure it out. If my actions are always, please don't leave me. Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Why haven't you texted me back? It's been 7 seconds already. Whatever what is driving that, it's easy to decipher. And sometimes you'll come up with a few things, and that's perfectly fine. I'm afraid that people are going to leave me. I'm afraid that people are going to abandon me. I'm afraid that people are going to abandon me on a whim. I'm afraid that people are going to hurt me. All of these come down to deep-seated beliefs or assumptions. When I say deep-seated, I just mean old, right? Old assumptions and beliefs that have existed time, what's the statement? I forget. It's a statement, time memoriam or something like that. But the point is observing back, then you can change it. Right? Look at someone else's life. Look at someone else's life. You can observe what their assumptions are by observing the patterns and examples in their life. Literally, it's not rocket science. I'm dead serious. You observe what is happening in a person's life, and you can know what is in their mind, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So what is he? And then therefore, what does he think in his heart? Or in other words, look at the branch, look at the experience, look at the manifestation, analyze it. What's it doing? What form is it taking? What is it invoking? What is it presenting as? Now, what does that mean? Now, this isn't going to be some crazy thing that's going to be unrelated. It's going to be obvious. Remember, by their fruits they will be known. And that's a saying, another scriptural saying that describes that every single thing that you witness must come from the same origin. I'm trying to come up with these memorized sayings. I'm just going to skip those for now. But the point is ultimately, everyone as you pushed out is referring to everything exists within you creates. Now, how do you change yourself? That is through imagining. You see, there's one way to imagine, and that's to visualize the end. We've talked about that time and time again. But for those of you who aren't absolutely certain of that and want to know how to do that, choose the thing that you want. Go to after the end. Imagine in first person perspective. Now, that's something you're going to have to train and practice. It's not easy and it's not immediate. It took me quite a while to train myself to go there, but now I cannot go anywhere but first person perspective. Go after the end. You can go ahead and try the middle and steps, but you'll suffer the consequences, as many of us have. After the end, imagine it until you are saturated with that truth. And that thing is going to come. Now, when you put it into assumptions, though, sometimes it's not as clear cut. So you can take the belief or assumption that you've surmised by observing everyone as yourself pushed out, observing the vine and the branch, and you can create a new statement, an opposing statement. So watch my video on assumption stacking or micro assumptions, and that will help you to understand how to seriously laser target, laser focus. This is more of the application and example of everyone is yourself pushed out. But if you want to learn about micro assumptions and assumption stacking, which is how to replace them and change them, watch those videos. They are super powerful. Now, how did I learn all this stuff, right? Part of this and the great majority of what I teach and is what I've learned is through experimentation, right? I had to experiment. I had to test all of these journals over here, filled to the brim, literally nothing else but manifestation testing since 2011. And there's some missing still. And then there are thousands more on my computer. But from testing is how I experience these, from testing, right? Segmented tests. And But besides that, how did I even know what to test? Now, I've been on a journey for a very long time. I had a very dark many years. So I did a lot of soul searching and reading and figuring stuff out. But ultimately, after a very powerful mystical experience in 2011, I finally found myself reading and listening to Neville Goddard. And it was one thing to read the books, but it was another to read his lectures, right? And there was listening to his lectures, which are great, but reading those lectures were absolutely life-changing. The thing about his lectures is he has hundreds and hundreds of them, right? So it's not something that you're going to do instantly. And if you are like me, then you'll sit down with a pen and a notebook where I printed all of them out. I underlined, I jotted, I cross-referenced, where I had my Bible, I had my concordances, and that's just what I did because I love to do that sort of thing. And I was totally, and still am, and if you don't know anything about me, watch my video on Deep Learning Solves Manifesting, because I created a program that extracts all the experiments that I've done over the past 13 years, and those of my clients and those of my subscribers who have submitted and analyzed all the coaching calls. And there are hundreds of thousands of manifestations that I have set up in this deep learning, deep analysis program that uses deep learning and AI to be able to extract and extrapolate how to manifest. And it's even come up with some things that I've never heard of before, and they are amazing. They work extremely powerful. But that is who I am. That is what I do, and I need to know the truth. And if you're someone who is like me and you want to know more about Neville Goddard and his teachings, and you're sick of the misinformation coming from these YouTubers who are reading, unfortunately, the misinformation from ChatGPT and Gemini and stuff like this, I created a built-in app only for serious Neville practitioners. This isn't really just for the average Joe, no pun intended. This is for people who are really serious about Neville, people who are wanting to learn the metaphysical interpretations, the people who want to actually know the truth throughout the breadth of Neville's experience, his life, all of his books. You can interact with there every single lecture of his. And then there's a second mode, a crazy mode, which is really... it uses a lot of resources, but it's cross-references your question not only to the lecture that you're talking to, but every book and lecture that he has. Now, what's different between that and any sort of ChatGPT or a custom GPT or something like that is, AI is not something that you would generally use as a whole, like Gemini or GPT, to do something like this, to learn a very specific thing about an author. Because what it does is it's not actually reading from Neville, it's reading from the people who talk about Neville, right? It reads all the transcripts from YouTube, it reads all of the stuff archived and indexed in Google search engine. It takes every website, all the Reddit stuff, and it formulates and gives you answers that they think might be most likely to be correct. They're not exactly, go ahead and ask it to quote something from Neville and then go ahead and cross-reference it, and the majority of time it's not actually going to have it right. Now, most people don't understand that that's happening, but if you want the absolute, unquestioned, testable truth about manifesting reality and the fact that you are God, you're probably going to want to read Neville Goddard, right? I've read everyone. I've systematically tested everyone. I've been doing this, like I said, for so many years. My entire channel is based upon my journey with manifestation, how I went from nearly dying to starting a successful business. I'm an app developer, I'm a web developer, an entrepreneur, and all of this stuff. All this stuff has come straight through manifestation only. I've had a great amount of mystical experiences. I can verify and validate that this is absolutely true as far as the manifestation guidebook and rule book. I'm not talking about religion here. That's not what I'm talking about ever. But nevertheless, the point is that Neville Goddard is the truth. So if you're interested in that, my app, website, you can just register. It's mynevillegoddard.com. Check it out. Just check it out if you want. Even there, you can just view the lectures, right? No one has those anymore. They're not around. So if you want those lectures to read, go ahead and go there. It'll change your life if you're interested and if you implement them like I did. But besides that, listen, everyone is yourself pushed out is the critical aspect of manifestation. It's the fact that everything in your life is influenced by you. So no matter where a person is going, what they're doing, how they're acting, what they're saying, you yourself have the power to change it through changing your subconscious mind. So all you have to do is imagine. You can create new statements. You can script those statements, use assumption stacking, change your micro assumptions and watch how drastically and easily everyone as you pushed out changes your entire life with you as the God of your reality. I hope this was helpful. If it was, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Please, we're almost at 100K. Let's get there. Let's do this. Share this video. Comment below. I want to know if you knew that quote. Tell us your success stories. Your stories alone are more impactful than my videos. Please, for those quiet listeners who have been silent listeners who have been starting to comment more, please do so. I love to know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.